Hello there, you guys, and welcome back to our little weekly video. Today we're going to do some little technique exercises for wrist flexibility for your bow. It's really common for us all to struggle with just being relaxed with the bow, and so I wanted to show you some little tips that we've been doing in lessons recently. So you're going to see two videos coming out that have to do with this. One is going to be with the wrist and one is going to be talking about the elbow. All ways that you can help with your string crossings, relative ease of playing, right? Relative, because it is tricky to play this instrument. And to just kind of help with keeping a continuous sound rather than playing like you know what I'm talking about. So all you need to do, and this would be a good thing to do, you know, before you do your open strings in your warm-up, for example, all you're going to do is you're going to put your bow on your top string or your first string, right? The one where your elbow's all the way down here. And then your hand is just going to flick the bow to the string next to it. So you're going to keep your arm still. You see how my elbow is not really moving, but my hand is coming up here and down. It might take you a moment to get it. Also notice where I am in the bow. I'm not like right here, I'm not right here. So if you're kind of struggling, find your top string, and then we're gonna go back and forth between the strings here. And see how easy it is? See if you can release any tension in your hand. Are you death gripping and trying to do that? See if you can just go back and forth nice and easy. And then when you're ready, we're gonna do the same thing on the middle string. So you're gonna move to your second string and find your position for the second string. So not up here, not all the way down here. Find where you want your elbow to be for your second string. And then you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna take your hand only to the string next to it. So the next one up, the third string, second string, third string. Right, so just back and forth. See if you can find a nice rhythmic, consistent back and forth. And also you can see the range of motion for your hand. See if you can really exaggerate the range of motion for the time being between the strings. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing on the bottom string. So, and actually in your warm-up, find your position for the third string, and then your hand's gonna go to the bottom string. Back and forth. I was gonna say something about your warm-up. In your warm-up, when you're doing this, you could also think about taking some breaths, just getting in violin or viola mode, you know. A very relaxing breath is to take an inhale, and then another little short inhale to completely fill your lungs, like this. And then slow exhale, so you can kind of just start to find some ease and just kind of get comfortable on your instrument. So that's the first exercise. The second thing is for us to then see if we can decrease that range of motion in the hand. So let's go back to the first string and the second string and see what's the smallest range of motion that you can go between those strings. And remember, we're finding the bow for the first string. So your elbow position for the first string, and then you're gonna take your hand to the lower string. If you are wondering why, let's do the opposite. So find your bow for the second string, and then take your hand to the first string, and it just feels a little awkward. There might be times where we need to do this, but for now, I just feel like it's a little easier to start with your bow on the first string, and then take your hand to the other string. Doesn't that seem a little easier? Anyway. We're just trying to find the easiest thing, right? So we're talking about the smallest range of motion. Look at what you're doing, eyes on the hair and on the string, and see if you can minimize this range of motion. And we're gonna do the same thing on the middle two strings. So find your second string, and then your hand will go to the third string. See if you can find the teeny tiniest range of motion for those. So it's just gently going back and forth. And then the bottom two strings, let's go to the third string and the fourth string. So elbow for the third string, and your hand's gonna go to the bottom string. Just tiny range of motion back and forth from the hand. See how my arm stays still? And then the third step is we're gonna add the whole arm. And what we're gonna end up doing is something like this. All right. right, so step one, find your position, and then your hand goes to the second string. We're gonna start on the second string, okay? And you can start with the rhythm. Get really comfortable with that rhythm. See if you can get that going. Just get that on autopilot. And then you're gonna start to open your arm from up here. And if you watch my arm over here, you're gonna see that I'm not doing this. I'm doing this. It's not like my arm is completely locked. There's some movement in the arm, but the majority of the movement is coming from the hand, which is really easy and so much easier and smoother, especially if you're gonna play fast. Right, so let's do that same thing on the middle two strings. So find your second string, take your hand to the third string. We're gonna go back and forth and just find your rhythm. Remember, see if you can decrease the range of motion so it's a little easier. You don't have to move as much. You're gonna start from the third string when you begin, and just think about opening your arm. And you don't need to use the whole bow. You can. Let's try to use the whole bow and see what happens. A little tricky at the frog, isn't it? So anyway, that's our little exercise for our wrist, our little wristy motions. See if you can practice this in your warm-up this week with your open strings. And just remember that we're working on balancing the bow on the lower of the two strings so that your hand can then just flick to the upper string. And if you get confused, see what happens if you balance your bow on the upper of the two strings and see what that feels like. You know, maybe you want to be able to do both, which is fine too. But I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time. And eventually we will be talking about the elbow. Happy practicing, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson.